welcome to Mystic Mondays. Mystic Mondays is now back from the dead. It's been a while, but we're back and we're trying it again with our theme of haunted. I don't know if you remember last time we tried to do this. It was a huge disaster. The internet was out in the whole block, and then like Beans like scratched me, and like I have like a piece of like she scratched out some of my ink. Like it was so hardcore. It was crazy. It was like the worst day ever. but this time, and then we came back with demons. We did demons the next time. That one went well because I'm more friendly with demons than I am with ghosts. And they were like, hell yeah, you can talk about us all you want. But I'm glad that the spirits are with us tonight. I'm glad that they're allowing us to talk about them. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about weird shit. There's a lot of new people on here who have never experienced Mystic Mondays. That's okay. Don't worry. It's going to be great. We're just all going to hang out and we're going to talk about weird stuff. I'm going to tell you about my thoughts and feelings on ghosts and haunted things. I'm going to tell you about some of my experiences that I have had with haunted situations, and then my thoughts and feelings on how to dispel haunted energies. You know, what do you do? What do you do when you are confronted by the paranormal and you are dealing with a motherfucking ghost? You know, it's some real shit. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's get into it, guys. I would like to start off this whole situation by telling you guys that I fucking love weird stuff. I've always been very much into the occult. I'm very much into anything that's spooky and weird. Like all that stuff has always been a big thing for me. I have been into horror movies since I was very small. I've had an attraction to the darkness, you know, maybe it's my Saturn and Scorpio vibes, but I'm totally down with weird stuff. And I think that part of it, I don't know, may have come from the fact that I grew up in what I believe is a haunted house. That's right, folks. I grew up in a place. I'm not kidding. And okay, I'm just going to go ahead and clear this up. I don't believe that it's haunted by like someone's spirit. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but it's a negative vortex, okay? And when my dad had bought the house that I grew up in, he had no idea that someone had killed themselves previously in the house. Someone had committed suicide in the house, and he didn't find out until later. You know, so it was kind of one of those deals where it's like they legally didn't have to tell you anything, and so they didn't. And then he got the house, and then later he heard what had happened. And my mom actually told me later, she was like, there was still some blood. Like she found some blood on the ceiling because they had blown their head off. And it was like really intense. And so, and that house is just this negative zone. And what makes me think about it is like, okay, was it a negative place before? Like this, I wish I could get answers to this, and I'll never get these answers. But I was always wondering, was this place a negative vortex before this person killed themselves, and then that's why they killed themselves? Or is it negative because somebody killed themselves there? Like, I don't know. I'll never know. But one of the things that like I said, you go in this house, and it just like, your energy goes down, you know? Like if you're super hype and you come into this house, you're just like, I don't really want to be here. Like this place kind of sucks. And a lot of my friends, like normally I would go to my friend's house. They really wouldn't come to my house very often. But there wasn't anything like, I never saw anything move. I never felt like a presence necessarily watching me, but that comes later. The one thing that I will say that I experienced in that house that I never figured out what the deal was, and I have a theory as to what was going on, was, okay, so my bedroom was on the second level, and it was somewhat underneath where the person had killed themselves. at night, there was a vent that was on the floor, like near my bed. And I would always hear something come up and hit that metal, the metal grating that was like the metal vent, and it would like tink, you know, and I would, it was one of those things where you could take the metal grating off. You could take it off, and then like I was hoping that maybe something would fly up and fly out of there, you know, and like, what is this, you know? And nothing ever flew up out of there. I never figured out what it was, but there's a part of me that's like, was that a ghost bullet? Was I hearing a ghost bullet, you know, like hitting like where the person had shot themselves? Like maybe it fucking flew up and like, I don't know, like, I don't know, but maybe, it was super weird. But so I've had experiences like growing up in like kind of haunted places. And I mean, growing up in the South, like the South is a very haunted place. Like that's, I mean, I think all of them, I think everywhere is fucking haunted, but the South has its own specific brand of haunting. That's just like, I mean, there's a whole genre of Southern Gothic shit for a reason, you know, like there's stuff going on down there that's like, I don't know what this is, but like, this is fucking suspect. Like, this is fucking weird. And, but before we get into more, like, I lived in Savannah, Georgia, which is one of the most haunted towns in the United States. I mean, I would say that outside of New Orleans, I would feel like it is one of the most haunted places. Let's talk about what are ghosts? Like, what is this? What's happening? What's going on here? You know? And I feel like, okay, so we live in this physical realm. You know, we live in a physical realm. We're these spirits that are enveloped in these flesh bodies, you know, and we don't really understand what consciousness is, where it comes from, you know, what all this is. But we're running around in these little bodies. And I feel like The Grudge kind of did a great job of talking about it, where when someone dies and they're in a very heightened emotional state, whether that's grief or anger or sadness or some sort of really heightened emotional state, they can leave behind kind of an echo or a resonance of their energy on the physical plane. Which, I mean, okay, like I'll buy that for $1, you know? I mean, we don't really understand, like I said, what the spirit is, like what this energy is that we're all dealing with, that's inside of all of us. And I could see that if you're in some sort of super rage when you die, or you're feeling really bad when you die or something, like, or you're really confused or whatever it is, it imprints itself upon that energy imprints itself upon the physical realm. And I feel like that's why you hear about like haunted items, haunted houses, you know, like it's normally like if you think about it, you know, everything is very porous, and especially like wood and like stones and like cloth items and things like that. And so these energies could potentially, in my opinion, imprint themselves upon these physical places, you know, because it's like, oh, you have a whole house and it's made out of all this very porous material. A lot of wood is usually involved. Haunted houses are always fucking wooden. I mean, has anyone else noticed that? It's like, you always see haunted houses and they're always like super old and decrepit and made out of wood, and wood is very porous. And so maybe these energies somehow imprint themselves within this porous material, and it gets kind of stuck in there, you know, it gets kind of like stuck in this physical place. And so yeah, so it's stuck there and it keeps repeating itself, because that's the one thing that we always hear about ghosts, right? Like you always hear that, like, oh, you see someone, they died, and you see them on the side of the road, and then they walk up to the bridge and then they fall over, you know, and it's just a ghost the whole time. Or there's like ghost hitchhikers and stuff like that. Or there's the ghost in the house who's always at the piano, or who's always wherever. It's, I think that that's like some real shit. And I think that we don't really understand all this stuff that's going on around us. We don't understand energies, and that we all have these energies inside of us, and how do they affect the physical realm, and how do they get caught up in all of this? You know, it's kind of like if you think about like cigarette smoking, You know, if you're like smoking a bunch of cigarettes in a place and that smoke just gets into everything, you know, it just gets into the couch cushions, gets into the walls. Like, have you ever been in a place where someone's been smoking for like 20 fucking years and it's just like disgusting, you know? Think about like if you had a person who's emanating all this like shitty fucking energy and they're in the same place and they're like emanating this for like their whole lives, and then like say they die and it's under some extreme circumstances, like that shit gets caught up in there. It's just like smells almost, you know, it's just like a smell. It's like it's some crazy shit. Like, again, none of us understands what's exactly going on, but there's something going on, and there's a lot of people. I mean, if you look in every fucking culture, you know, around the world from the dawn of time, ghosts are something that's around. Like, they're always mentioned by every culture. Everyone has their own ghost stories. So I feel like, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, if everybody's talking about them and everyone around the world has these experiences, and we've all had these experiences, then like, I don't know, man, maybe some shit's going down. All right. Like, maybe some shit's going down. And I've watched a lot of ghost stories, like ghost movies. I've read a lot of ghost stories. I've watched a lot of shows about ghosts. I'm really fascinated in all this stuff. And yeah, smells are ghosts. Yes, smells are those smells are ghosts. They're the ghosts of something that happened. So I really think that like that's some real shit. Like, you need to think of ghosts as like smells. They're like an energetic smell that has been left behind that people like still interact with, you know. It's like it's still there. Because there's not only is there haunted houses, there's haunted objects. I don't know if you guys have looked into this. Haunted stuff sells like hotcakes on eBay. Okay, like it's real stuff. Like, there is a whole bunch of things, if you can like Google it and look for listings of like haunted items, and like I'm sure most of it's bullshit, but like there's some of it that's probably some like real shit. Like, there's like some real stuff that's really interesting. So like, say you had somebody who's like really like, you know, grabbing some doll. You know, you always hear about haunted dolls. Like, we all hear about haunted dolls. But it's like, okay, well, what would be the deal with a haunted doll? Well, somebody's fucking touching some fucking object and is like putting their energy all over it, you know? And then like they die, and if they're clutching it, like, who knows? Maybe some shit gets caught up in there. You know, maybe some resonance get caught up in there. And a lot of ghosts too, a lot of things that you hear about ghosts is like, they always have some unfinished business. You know, that's another part of it. Besides like the heightened emotions, unfinished business is another part of it, where like either somebody killed them and their murder was never solved, or they never got to some place they were trying to get to. Like, say you're trying to get to your wedding, and then and you're rushing around, and then you get into a big accident and you don't even realize you're dead. And then so now this spirit like tries to like get to its wedding for like the rest of time, you know? But the thing about this shit, like, for me is like, I don't know, if I was ever confronted like head on with a ghost, I'd just be like, dude, what is your problem? Like, you're dead now. Your problems are over. Like, you need to let it go, bro. Like, go to the other side, bitch. Like, go to the fucking other side. Like, this shit is like so goofy. It's like you're fucking tripping, fool. Like, your problems are done, dude. But they don't know that, you know? Like, they don't know that. Like, and I don't know if it's like maybe their spirit has traveled on. Maybe it's just like the energy that's resetting itself, you know? Like, again, we don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. That's why it's really interesting, and that's like why it's really fun to talk about. But Balaya, as you said, Muslims believe our spirit have to mediate or meditate around our body after death for 3 days in order to accept it. And that's why they don't burn the bodies. That's a really interesting idea, you know, because it might take your spirit a minute to let go, because you've been so in this physical body. Like, your spirit and your energy has manifested in this little meat puppet. And then when it goes, it's like it might not want to leave for a few days and just like linger around, you know? I mean, if you think about like one of the things that's really interesting to me about like ancient Egypt, we need to do a Mystic Mondays ancient Egypt at some point, actually, and like that's like some real shit, because I really want to get into that. But you know, I mean, when you think about ancient Egypt, it's like mummies, You know, like they're mummifying themselves, and like, why are they mummifying themselves? Like, what's that all about? Like, what's the deal? And from the research that I've done, and who knows for sure, I mean, this is like ancient fucking Egypt, you know? It's like, so like, oh, like so much information has been lost. So we're just like really trying to piece together our best ideas. But from what I have researched and what I've read, it has said that kings, like pharaohs and all that, like they would mummify themselves because they would want their spirit to return. And they felt that if they had mummified their bodies, their physical bodies that their spirit had been in, that would lure the spirit to come back. You know, it would lure the spirit to like want to come back and be reincarnated. And it's like, oh, so that whole thing goes in with the theory of like, you know, again, like how like it's like it makes an impression, like the spirit and this energy makes an impression on the porous materials of this material fucking realm that we're in, that we're all trapped in, this material realm. And so yeah, they want to like bring their bodies back, so they leave it down there. Yeah. And so Ultimazer, you're saying trauma to the psyche transcends dimensions, planes of existence, maybe. And it's like, yeah, like I think so. And Fujimura, you're saying Buddhism says to leave the body alone for 3 days to let the energy leave and calm down, and then they can leave that body. So it's not just Islam. You know, we also got Buddhism saying, and also if you think about the Christian situation, you had Jesus who died and came back from the dead after 3 days, you know, like 3 is the magic fucking number. I think that that's really interesting. What is a possessed person? Well, this is Mystic Monday fucking haunted. We're not talking about possessions today. That's like a whole other thing. But, let me see. So Astro Kicker says ancient Egyptians believed spirits that feared judgment, in the Duat would remain as malevolent forces. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, I mean, how many times do you hear of somebody who led like a really chill life and then they're a fucking ghost? You know, it's like, it's never someone who's like had a chill, happy, peaceful deal. It's always like some, like, it's most of the time it's some super negative shit, you know, where they committed suicide or they were murdered or whatever, you know. I mean, another big thing about ghosts is, like if their bodies haven't been laid to rest. So say somebody has been killed, but their body was just thrown somewhere or hidden somewhere, you know, then their spirits can't rest because they haven't been like consecrated and they haven't had anyone pray over their bodies and like do any of the stuff that you're supposed to do. Which is really interesting. But there are chill ghosts. I don't want to say there's not chill ghosts because I've watched a lot of shows about haunted shit, and like there's definitely like some child ghosts, and this is like children ghosts are ones that they're just confused, where like they died but then they kind of don't know that they're dead and they're just like really fucking confused, you know. So some ghosts are confused, but generally most of them I feel like are having some sort of like really fucking hard time. How is a poltergeist different from a ghost? Well, like ghosts have their own agendas. Like I feel like poltergeists like want to fuck with other people, whereas like ghosts are just like doing their own thing and replaying their own deal like over and over and over again, you know. Whereas like poltergeists have more of like an anger situation where it's like they just want to like fuck shit up, you know. Like that's some whole other thing. But I think too that like, I mean, I don't know, maybe there are some more chill ghosts where it's like they're just there, they don't even know why they're there, and so they just need to like, you just need to be chill with them and like hang out, you know. But generally a lot of them are like really angry, you know. I feel like a lot of ghosts are generally very angry. So I went to a friend's birthday party in the hills, in the Hollywood Hills, and their friend was hosting it, and they were renting this old beautiful mansion that was created, I don't know, the turn of the century. I mean, maybe the early 1900s, maybe the 1920s at the latest. It did seem a little bit Art Deco, so maybe it was created in the 20s. And And this particular place was someplace that was supposed to be haunted. Like it had a reputation for being a haunted house. And there was a very like wild woman who lived there and all this stuff. And I remember talking to the man who lived there, and I was asking him about it. And I was like, well, have you had any experiences or anything? And he was like, no. But then I was like, well, do you feel yourself personally changed at all? Like, do you feel different living here? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, what's the difference? And he was just like, I'm definitely more of an asshole, you know? And it's like, oh, I could see, I don't know. I just got this feeling that like whatever energy was in that house that used to be in that house is still there, and that like it attaches itself to who's ever there, and like it starts like the cycle all over again, you know? And like I could like watching this guy, I mean, he was dressed like a fucking devil, you know? Like I was just like, you look like the motherfucking devil right now. Like he had this little thin mustache, and it was just like, oh, like maybe, because that's one thing that's really interesting. When I was reading Lance Henriksen's autobiography. Lance Henriksen was the guy who played Bishop in Aliens, and he's an actor, and he's a very extremely thoughtful, sensitive man who is just like a really amazing person. And I was reading his book, and he was talking about how one time he was in Telluride. I don't know if that's in Utah or somewhere, but it was like a big, or maybe it was in California, but it was this big gold rush town, and it was this box canyon. And at one point he was at some bar or something, and he realized, and he looked around, and he saw that like all the people that were there that were doing all this stuff were kind of like possessed by all of these ghosts that were still living there from like the fucking gold rush days. And like he could see that like everyone was kind of like reliving these, like replaying these cycles that have passed before them. And so that got me thinking on like how haunted shit can not just be ghosts, but also where you do kind of become like possessed in a way, where you start replaying the things that happened before you came there, you know? And it's like, oh, like that's really fucking weird and interesting. But we're gonna take a quick break. We're going to be back in like 5 minutes. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, and then we're going to get on to how do you get rid of these things? Like, what do you do if you're confronted by some sort of spiritual energy, and how do you deal with it in a way that's constructive and helpful for everybody? So we will be right back. Hey guys, thanks. We're back from our break for Mystic Monday Haunted. Thank you guys for hanging out. Cheers to everybody out there. Talking about spooky shit today. So we've been talking about haunted stuff. And we're talking about ghosts and what we think they are. I think there's some sort of some energies that have gotten left behind in the porous. It's like a smell. It's like you had some spiritual energy that gets trapped in this porous, you know, material realm. You know, reality is plastic. These things kind of affect one another. And so sometimes when someone's under great stress or whatever, they're really confused, whatever the deal is, some shit gets left behind. It replays itself over and over again. You know, there's always an element of replaying itself. By the way, thank you guys. It's Telluride, Colorado. That's what Lance Henriksen was in Telluride, Colorado. Yeah. And he was saying that he just saw all these people. He was also saying another thing in his book that was fascinating, was he was talking about how he was like in Mexico or something at some opera singer's house for some party. And this was before he became an actor. He was just like an artist. Like he was very much just like hitchhiking around, was a bohemian, essentially, like just a fucking dude just running around. And this opera singer was a medium or a psychic to some degree. And she looked at him and she was like, you know, oh, like you died like in flames or something in the war and like all this stuff. And he was like, oh. And he said later that like he saw there was like a tank, like some like World War I tank or something. And like when he saw it, it's like it like broke him, and he just like started freaking out and was just like realized that like in his past life, he believes that he was in the war and died, you know, in fire. Like someone had like thrown in some sort of like something that exploded, some explosive into the fucking tank he was in. And like, and this time the psychic told him like, oh, like you were a warrior, you know, you were a soldier in your last life, but in this life you're here to be an artist, you know? So his last life he died like being a soldier, and in this life it's time for him to be an artist. And so he's gotten to be an artist, which is like so cool. It's really fascinating. Like his book was just like the stuff, everything that happened to him before he became an actor was like more interesting to me. I was just like, you are so fucking interesting. Like you are amazing. Altrock 420 says, well, what about you and past lives? You know, it's like, well, I know, okay, I've been here before. I know that. Okay, I don't know what the fuck my past lives were. I haven't done any past life regression. There's a part of me that'd be interested in trying it and seeing what that is like and seeing what I would come up with. But like, I haven't ever like engaged in that and really trying to figure it out. But I do believe that I've been here before, and I've been here a lot. And I mean, I remember in high school, I used to work for this guy, Gary McKelvey, at the airbrush store. He taught me how to airbrush. And he was telling me, he's like, girl, you have been here before, baby. You know, and I was like, what? And he's like, been here before, baby. You've been here before. And I was like, oh, really? Oh, yeah, I have, you know. But I do. I feel like a little bit of an old soul. I feel like I've been here. I've done this a few times, you know. I've been on this wheel. But it's a fun ride, and I'm glad to be back, and I hope I get to come back again. It's been a great time. You know, this realm is pretty fucking nuts. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, reincarnation is a different thing than ghosts. Yeah. So it's like, this is just like some other shit, like whatever, past lives. That's a whole other Mystic Monday, past lives. Like that's a whole other fucking bag of cats. I had a neighbor actually who was into past life regression, and she was like telling me all about it, and that she believes that she was in Joan of Arc's army and like in France, and she went back to France to like retrace those things. But I think the danger of past life stuff is like, well, that was your past life. That's not what you're here to learn now. And so if you are using your time now to go back through your past life, and then you might get stuck on things that were just like past things that you're not even really supposed to be working on anymore, you know? So yeah. But it is interesting. There are people, mediums, who believe that they can channel spirits of the dead. That's absolutely a thing out there. Like there's psychics and channelers. I don't know. I've known psychics. Like I have friends who are into that whole thing, and I've met many psychics over the years. I mean, I believe that like, I mean, everyone's like, oh, it's just being more, I think there's just a lot more of being intuitive. Like, it's like not, people want to put a mysticism about it, but it's like just being like a heightened intuitive person, I think is a lot of it. But there are people who believe that they can like channel like spirits and stuff like that. And that's pretty interesting. I don't know if I'd like to try, I would check it out, you know, like if there was somebody and like I was ever offered the experience of like being in a medium's presence and like seeing what they would come up with and like watching them, seeing what happens. I don't know. Have you had any, Josh, you're into mediums and psychics a little bit. You do. Who are your favorites?
Who's my favorite psychic?
Yeah.
Probably Sylvia Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sylvia Brown.
Right reason,
yeah, Sylvia Brown.
She's like so full of shit.
Yeah, Sylvia Brown's totally full of shit. Like she's a perfect full of shit psychic.
But what she did that was smart was she kind of merged that with like Christianity, so she like, really cleaned up.
Oh yeah. Well, merging psychic with the Christian thing. I mean, yeah, you could make a lot of money off of that.
But she would tell people how to get rid of ghosts.
Yeah, she would tell people how to get rid of. How did she tell people? How did Sylvia Brown tell people to get rid of ghosts?
First of all, you protect yourself. You surround yourself with the white light of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And then you tell the ghosts to go to the Christ consciousness.
Yes.
That's what Sylvia Brown would tell people to do.
You know, honestly, I don't think that's bad fucking advice. Like, I'm gonna go with Sylvia Brown on this. Like, that sounds like great fucking advice. Yeah, that sounds like some real shit. Yeah. That's really funny.
She was $700 for a 1 hour, I think a half hour reading.
Jeez, I'm in the wrong line of work.
It was at the end of her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what she charged. Like
$700 for an hour. Yeah. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. That's pretty intense. Yeah, pour one out for Miss Cleo. Everyone's talking about Miss Cleo right now. We all remember Miss Cleo. Well, not all of us, but us.
Yeah, but she wasn't even really Haitian. That was just an actress, right?
Yeah.
Was she a real? She was just an actress, right?
Yeah, no, Miss Cleo wasn't. I think that she was just an actress, and she was like, "Oh, Miss Cleo called a psychic line," and she wasn't. That accent wasn't real. Right. And then you just talked to like random people. And in fact, I actually had a friend who was on a psychic line, who was a psychic, who told me about what like he had to do. It was really funny. I have a friend. I'm not going to name names. I don't know if this is cool to say this or not. So we'll just keep it on the DL internet. But I have a friend who told me that they worked for a psychic hotline. They also worked for a porn hotline too. So they were just like doing like hotline work. But he said that they would give him a script of like different things to say when people call you. So you would have a whole script and like they would, and he said he would like fuck with people and he would just like tell them to do like crazy shit and like they would, and he'd be like, okay, now you need to get like a thing of water and then like put it on your head and then you need to like write all the names of something and then you have to turn around 100 times and you have to say this fucking thing. And like he would keep, because the whole point is to keep people on the line. So he would have them do these like elaborate fucking things to keep them on the line for a long time. And I was like, whoa. I know some interesting people. But yeah, he was also telling me he used to do like sex work lines, but then like he would be like really fucked up and like he wouldn't be sleeping and he'd be on drugs and doing all sorts of things. And like one time he would fall asleep while he was talking to people and like forget who he's talking to and like all this shit. And like at one point, like, I don't know, I think he was like talking to his mom or something and like fell asleep and then like woke up and thought he was doing like sex line stuff or something and like went into the wrong script. It was like so crazy. But yeah, it's like, well, it's funny. Like I've known people who've worked in the psychic industry as total frauds. And I know people who work in that industry who have been like legit, like believe in what they do, you know? And like, that's, I feel like you're going to get one or the other, you know, if you ever get in with these people, it's like they either really believe in what they're doing and they 100% believe it, or they're complete and total fraud, you know? It's an interesting bag, but I think that we all have kind of psychic abilities to some degree. You know, some of us have them more finely tuned than others. It's just like some people are just better at fucking basketball. You know, it's like some people can just like pick up on shit that some other people can't pick up on. But yeah, this is giving you business ideas. Yeah. I'm getting you into the world of being a fraud. Like, these games have been around since the dawn of time. But, you know, I think it's really interesting. Like, there's a character in Harry Potter, Trelawney, Professor Trelawney. And she's kind of, like, all the other people think that she's kind of a fraud, all the other teachers. And she teaches, like, omens and shit where, like, you read cards or you look in the tea leaves or whatever. And she, like, predicts the future from that sort of stuff. And like, the thing about her is like most of the time she is bullshit is the thing. Like most of the time she's totally making up. She's totally bullshit like Trelawney is. But then every now and again, some real shit comes through her, you know? And when the real shit comes through her, it's the most real shit of all time. And like, so you know, it's like you have to like respect that, where it's like, yeah, it's not, she can't turn it on all the time and most of the time she's full of shit, but like when she isn't full of shit, it's some real shit that everybody needs to hear, you know? And I think that there's a lot of frauds where they may accidentally get into like channeling real shit sometimes, because I feel like reality is plastic and you are what you pretend to be. And if you pretend to be a psychic, every now and then you're going to hit on some stuff. Like every now and then those flashes are going to come through to you and like you're going to have some psychic shit come through. But going back to haunted stuff and spiritual stuff, I will say that like I want to discourage, you know, you can try a medium, whatever, have fun. I think that it's very therapeutic for a lot of people to just hear, like most people want to hear the same thing when they go to a medium and they want to channel a dead one, you know, a dead loved one. And they're always just like, they just want to hear that like they're loved, and like it's really more of a therapeutic thing for them. And if they go away from it and it makes them feel better and they're able to move on, then it's worth whatever fucking money that they put into it. You know, it's like, that's a real big aspect of all this that people really ignore is, sure, it may be bullshit, but if it helps somebody legitimately and then they can move on from whatever their psychological hang up is, then like, okay, you know, like if it fits, it fucking ships, guys. I mean, that's how I fucking go with it. But yeah, having psychic insights is pretty scary in your opinion, says Mandrew Church. Yeah, it can be. And the thing about it is like, I don't know. I went on a date with a psychic girl once, and like this girl was legit. Like she was like, I fucking believed her. I like met this girl online. This was years ago. This was like, like 9 years ago at this point, maybe. I don't know. But she was telling me that she was like, yeah, I'm a psychic, and like things happen for me, and I'm really open. And it's like, well, if you, and I can tell when someone's full of shit or not, generally speaking. Sometimes, you know, whatever, you can get one over on me. I'm not fucking perfect, but I know when someone believes in what they're saying, or if someone doesn't believe in what they're saying, but they're saying it anyways. And I could tell that she really believed in what she was saying. And like some of the things that she told me like that night was just like, what? And one of the things that she told me was that she was like, you have to go to California. You have to go to California. Like, it's crazy. Like, you're going to be so big. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, you have to go out there. And I was like, what? Like, okay. Like, and then I ended up coming out here, and then like she was right. I needed to come out to fucking California. Like, she was 100% right. So yeah. Andrew's Gamer says, Andrew's Gamer, I like that. Gamer, that's really cute. I love that. That's great marketing. I stopped reading tarot because my horrible predictions came true. Yeah, it's a huge burden. It's a huge burden because, like, when you do know stuff, you know, have you heard the fucking, there's a whole saying that's like, don't shoot the messenger, because that's the thing. Like, when people hear bad news, like, they always get mad at the person who tells them about it, you know? And so if you do have any sort of, if you do have any sort of insights that come to you, even if you tell people, they'll usually get mad at you, and there's nothing you can do. And I don't know, I feel like I've definitely had times where I'm like, this is going to be bad. Like, this is not a good thing, but there's nothing you can, like, I've learned that over time, it's like, you just have to let people make their own mistakes, and you just can't, like, you just have to shut the fuck up and just, like, let them do it. Like, you just have to be like, okay, bro. Like, cause it doesn't really, they never, that's the whole thing about whenever you see someone who knows something, they're always like trying to tell everybody, hey guys, and then no one ever believes them. And then it's like, it just doesn't even matter. It just like makes everything worse. But going back to, how do you get rid of a ghost? Like, how do you get, if you're in a haunted place, if you have a haunted item, whatever, if you're dealing with some sort of like negative, weird spiritual energy that you're not comfortable with, what do you do in this? Well, okay, so energy, I think, feeds off of energy. So one of the things is that more negative spirits, if you are being confronted by a negative spirit, like say the one that Josh dealt with, that it was like trying to choke them and like grabbing their throat and stuff like that. Like, these energies feed off of, like, they want more energy, you know, and they want to make you feel scared, you know, and they want to like, And so I feel like if you try not to feed it and not like let your own energy, I mean, yeah, of course it's like going to be really scary, but like if you just like chill, then like you're not feeding into it. Like, not feeding into it is something that's really important that a lot of people, I never hear anyone talking about, because it's like, you know, you see all these movies and it's like, oh, everyone gets so hyped and then everyone gets so scared, and like the more scared people get, the more energy that's giving to the spirit or the whatever that's going on here. So the more you need to like chill out. I don't know. That's one thing. But normally you hear that like two things are really cleansing. Two things in particular: fire/smoke and salt. Salt and fire are really good at getting rid of energies. Those two things are really purifying things. Also prayer. That's something like bringing in your own happy energies. You know, those sorts of things work really well. I don't know if a lot of you have heard about sage. There's a few different things that you can burn. Say if you feel like a negative energy, it doesn't have to be like a haunted house, but like you have a negative boo-boo space. And you can feel it when you go into these places if you're paying attention, where you just feel like your energy is being taken down a little bit. Sometimes if you open up all the windows, let some light in, put on some happy music, get yourself hyped up, burn some sage. You can get some sage, get a whole sage smudge. You can get it at your local weirdo shops. Wherever they probably sell pipes, you can also get a sage smudge. Light that bitch on fire and then go around the house. You know, like I like to just get in a really good mood and dance, and then open up all the windows and just like, yeah, dance around and get that smoke in every little corner. You know, just get that smoke all over the fucking place. You know, that helps to dispel some negative energies. That's some good stuff. And part of me feels like, you know, the whole story about, I was telling about Sherman marching down to fucking Savannah. Like, I feel like if he had burned that motherfucker to the ground, it would not be haunted like it is today. I feel like it would not be haunted like it is today. It should have been burned. And it didn't burn down. And because it didn't burn down, you know, it's gotta like, it still has all that boo-boo energy. But here's a new fucked up level to this. So if salt is also a purifier, you know, salt is great. Also dark stones like onyx, tourmaline, jet, you know, all these things are really great at like for negative energy stuff, soaking up things, because you can also use crystals and shit. But like, okay, so I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that our oceans are rising. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead. I haven't done the actual research myself, but I read a lot of articles. I feel like my gut intuition here is that sea levels are rising. Climate change is real. And there's going to be a lot of shit underwater in my lifetime. Like in my lifetime, like I'm going to see within 50 years, the coastlines are going to change, you know, maybe not. Hey, and if it doesn't happen, cool. That's great. I would love for that to not happen. But if it happens, you know, it fucking happens. And you know, the first motherfucking places that are going to go are Charleston, Savannah, St. Augustine, New Orleans. Like all of these towns are at or below sea level. And they're all on the coast. And the minute the fucking oceans rise, all of this salt water is going to come in. And I believe that this salt water is going to displace and like heal a lot of the haunted, shitty energy emanating from these places that have had human atrocities on a scale that we don't want to think about. Nobody wants to think about the horrendous things that were going on in these towns. And so maybe one of the happy side effects of climate change could be to dispel a lot of the haunted energy in America. Because again, it's like if haunted energy is energy that is locked in a loop, you know, I feel like haunted energy is kind of like this loop that keeps replaying. You think about these towns, and like these towns were like slave trade towns, and like these places like really emphasized this awfulness of humans telling other humans that they weren't humans, you know, and all this shit. And it keeps like, and this is replayed today, you know, all the time. You know, it's like everyone's like, oh, you know, America is like racism. That's a whole thing. Maybe when these towns are destroyed and the salt water comes in, I'm hoping that's going to dissipate some of like the racial tension in this country. I think maybe that'll help heal some. And I know this is fucking wackadoo. I know this is like really out there, but I'm trying to find the silver lining. Like I try to find the silver lining in everything. And it's like, okay, climate change sucks, but one of the positives is it could heal some of these haunted places. And then once we get these haunted places healed up, maybe we can heal as a people, because maybe we're just replaying the same shit that's been going on for a long time. You know, like maybe there's something there. I don't know. We'll see. But it's interesting, you know, go say salt water. That's what I'm saying. They don't like salt water. They don't like fire. They don't like smoke. They don't like happy music. They don't like people coming in with their happiness. They don't like prayer. I call it the Christ force. That's my term for it. I like the Christ force. And, I mean, like it or not, the Christ force is some of the most potent energy you can work with in the occult. And absolutely, like making the sign of the cross, you know, the Lord's Prayer, all of these things are great things to use if you're trying to get rid of some negative energy. You know, they really respond to that shit. Like, it's real shit. I remember I was reading this book about the Kabbalah by this guy. His pen name is Gareth Knight, which is really cute because he's super into Arthurian legend and like he's like super bonered up on that sort of stuff. And in this book, he was very much talking about the Christ force and the Christ energy and how it's unfortunate that a lot of us don't have time for the Christian faith because it's been, you know, we see all the hypocrisy in it. We grew up in it. We see all these asshole adults just being crazy people. And you're like, oh, this whole shit's retarded. And you end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But that, you know, we should really take a look at that stuff because that is one of the most potent occult figures in recent memory. And it really evokes some real shit. You know, if you have some ghost issues, making a sign of the cross ain't a bad idea. You know, give it a shot. Try it out. Let me know if it works for you. But yeah, so if you want to get rid of some spirits, definitely consult someone, though, that's a weirdo person in your community. They can help you. Get some sage. Get maybe, you know, get some salt. One thing you can do, salt your house. If you just, like, salt around and then sweep it out the door. Just sweep it the fuck out the door. Like, that's a great way to do it, too. Like, I've done that before, and I feel like that's really helpful. Palo Santo. Yes, thank you, JJWLOL. That's another good one. I haven't used Palo Santo, but I'd like to. I do have some sort of aerosol spray that I bought from this, like, the Temple of Holy Death. Don't use a Ouija board. Let me just say it. Just don't use a Ouija board. Like, if you do have a spirits going on and you're trying, like, don't try to communicate with them. Don't communicate with them. Like, just don't get a Ouija board out. I think that's a really bad idea. I think this is the do's and the don'ts of how to deal with spiritual energy. And like, Ouija boards are not the thing. You don't know what you're talking to. It could be telling you all sorts of weird shit. It could be fucking with you. Like, you have no idea. Okay. It could be a troll. Okay. Whatever you're talking to in a Ouija board is probably a troll, whatever it is. So like, Ouija boards are trolling you. Don't deal with that shit. It is not the deal. Like, it's really bad for you. I was playing with a Ouija board in my haunted house growing up. And it was me by myself. And I had just seen Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon. And it was like, in that movie, they were like, okay, he's trying to contact a dead girl's ghost. So he's like, okay, what do I do? And like, he's told that to close your eyes and to visualize an empty movie theater and visualize like an empty screen. And then, you know, things will start playing upon that screen. And like, he was being told like how to like focus his energy and like how to open himself up so that he could communicate. And so I was like, well, this all sounds pretty good. Like, I was like, that sounds like some good advice. Like, that works for me. So I got out my Ouija board. Like I said, I was very much into the occult. Like, this was probably 5th grade, I believe, 5th or 6th grade. And, you know, I grew up in a very Christian household. So, like, it was not about it was a Protestant Christian household. So it was very much like not into that stuff. And I'm surprised I was even able to get a Ouija board, to be honest, because I wasn't like allowed to have like any witchy, like weird shit. Like, that was like not okay. So I don't even know how I got this, but somehow I was allowed to have a Ouija board, and I was like playing with it by myself. And I was like sitting there, and I was like using I was like I cleared my mind. I thought of a fucking empty movie, because I love movies, obviously. I've been to a lot of movie theaters. So I thought of an empty movie theater. I thought of the empty screen, and I had my little hands on the planchette, and I asked my question, and then motherfucker, that fucking planchette moved. It was like bloop. And I was like, whoa, like, nope. And I don't know what it was, but I immediately was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I just stopped. I was like, and I gave the Ouija board to my friend Rebecca up the street. I was like, you can have this. I don't want it. you can have it. It's like, I don't want to throw it away because I don't know, I feel bad about throwing shit away. It's like, that's wasteful. But you can totally dig it and have it because I don't want it anymore. And I don't even remember what the question was. I didn't even let it answer. I just was like really freaked out. And I was just like, fuck this. Like, this is a bad idea. But tarot is a whole other bag of cats. Like, I think tarot is totally chill. And I obviously am a student of that. And I think that that's like, if you want to communicate using tarot, that's something that I would suggest. Because I've noticed I'm very sensitive to energies, and I do feel like, and I wanted to try this. Like, I feel like, okay, legit, I feel like I want to put this shit to the test, guys. If you built like little rooms, like say there's like little rooms, and then you put people in these little rooms that were feeling very extreme emotions. You know, like say somebody's like really, really happy, and you put a bunch of happy people in this room, and you have a bunch of happy vibes coming out in this room. And then in the next room, you have like crying people. You have a bunch of people crying over something, you know, put them in the next room. Put people fighting and yelling in the next room. If you put me in that room, would I be able to decipher what kind of energy is still in that room? I would be interested to find out. I feel like if it was a super sad bummer place, I might be able to like pick up on it. I don't know. But it also depends on the day, because sometimes I'm sharper and sometimes I'm like more obtuse. So it's like, you never really know. But the Temple of Holy Death. There was a place on Melrose called the Temple of Holy Death right across a weed shop that I was going into. And I was like, what is this place? And so after I got my weed, I went into the other place and I was like, yo, what's up? And I bought I bought a crucifix from there. I bought a shirt, and I bought some of their spray. That's like an aerosol, like clean out the juju spray. And it's really goofy and fun, but I enjoy using it. You know, it's like, it's a good thing. It's like, it worked for me. But it was funny. The guy was like, oh, like, do you want the love one? You know, do you want the money one? And I was like, I've got enough love in my life. Like, it causes me trouble. No. And like money, like, no, like, I feel like money is so base. Like, I don't want to do that, but totally. I'll take the, just get rid of the bad juju stuff, because I feel like, okay, so I've been staying in this place. It's like a one-room place, and I know that I put out a lot of energy. Like, I am a very, I don't know, like when I really feel something, I really feel it, whether it's happiness or sadness or whatever. I just, like, I put out a lot of energy. And I've noticed in this place that every, like, I don't know, a few months go by, and it's like it gets all stuffy in there with my energy. It gets really stuffy, you know, of all the bullshit that I've been putting out. And so I try to take time to like open up all the windows, put on some good music, sage the entire place, like just let everything air out, let the light in, and then it feels lighter in there. You know, it totally feels lighter in there, and it feels way better. So it's like one of those things where I just have to like maintain it though. And I have to be aware of it, and I have to like check in with it and be like, okay, like there's a lot of shit going on. Because I think that we all get like, I don't know, we all put out a lot of stuff. I mean, you know, when you go into somebody else's fucking house, like, and you just feel their energy, like it's a total different vibe in their house. You know, you can call it a vibe, you can call it an energy, whatever. But there's certain people, like super bummer people, and you go to their house and it's like a super fucking bummer house, you know? And it's like, oh, really happy, nice people. And you go to their house and it's like really happy and nice. Like whatever, like you're putting out, like we have this electromagnetic shit that we're putting out all the time that like I said, we don't know exactly what it does, you know? It could go in a lot of different ways. But yeah. Well, you're right, DMK illustration. I am very empathic. And I feel like I'm just now kind of getting a handle on it, like, because it's been a really tough thing to like deal with throughout my life. And if, for those of you who don't know, empathic people are people who can feel other people's emotions, like they can pick up on other people's emotions around them. And so, but I don't think that just stops with people. I think that that stops with, like, if you go into a house and it's like a bummer house, like I'll pick up on it. If I go into a place that's a happy place, I'll pick up on it. You know, like I kind of take in whatever is around me and it gets amplified within me. And so for me to figure out things that I can do to like ground that sort of stuff has been really important for me. I mean, one of the things is like being at a convention is kind of too much for me. like being around that much energy, because we are these little energy beings and we all have our little electromagnetic fields. And then when you put a whole bunch of those electromagnetic fields all beside each other and pack them into one small little space, then like it's a lot of energy. And so for someone like me, when I get in that, I feel like I'm living in a battery, you know. It's just like, it's overwhelming to me. I have a hard time, I mean, I have a hard time sleeping anyways, but it's like I have a hard time sleeping. It's just too much, and I get really overwhelmed, and then I get really drained by it. And then afterwards I always get sick because I'm so like overloaded with all this stuff. So over the last few years, I've stopped going to conventions. And I know it's like, people are like, oh, you should come to conventions and you can make money going to conventions. And like, yeah, totally, I could, but it's not good for my health, bro. And like, I'm not at a place like where I can protect myself from that sort of stuff. I'm not there yet. It's like, but I'm figuring out like how to ground myself and how to do those things. Like one thing in particular that's been really helpful for me is Epsom salt baths. You know, we're talking about salt dissipating energies. Epsom salt baths are fantastic. You just put a shit ton of it in your water and you just sit in there for 40 minutes to an hour, at least 40 minutes. I like to stay in there usually to about an hour and just soak in it and sweat and drink a bunch of water while you're in there. And then when you get out, you'll keep sweating. You want to make sure the water's really hot. And you'll just get you'll really stimulate your entire system. Your blood will really be pumping. You'll be sweating out a bunch of toxins, and it's really good for you. And that's something that when I feel like I have a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to process, a lot of energies in me that are just like overwhelming me, I'll take an Epsom salt bath, and that will really help get my energy in a place that's like more manageable, you know, because a lot of times it's not even my own energy. It's other people's shit, you know. It's like, that's why it's really important for me to be around the right people. Because if I get around the wrong people, then like I get all thrown off. So I got to be around like the people with the right kind of energy. So yeah. Do I light candles with my baths? Asks Adventure Industries. Yes, I do. I do like to have the fire element going on, the water and the fire. I think that's really good. I did for my last one. I actually used some of these, actually this guy, and then I used like this guy. These two guys accompanied me for my last Epsom salt bath, and it was really magical. Yeah, candles are classic uncrossing. Yeah. Well, again, it's like you have the fire element, you have the salt element, you know. I feel like you're really, doing all of the stuff. You really have to think of negative energy kind of like dust. You know, it just like creeps into corners, it creeps into places, and you just really have to get in there and clean it out sometimes. It's kind of very practical if you think about it. And we're back for Mystic Mondays. Thank you guys for hanging out. My head is filled with bugs. I've been watching some of the chat here. And someone said, some ghost was manifesting themselves in my bed or wanted me out of bed because they were under me while I was trying to lay there. It worked because I was up for half an hour thinking about it before I remembered I was in my damn bed. And it's like, yes, like, I don't know, is it the house? Is it the bed? Was it a used bed? Was it the house? Have you had more experiences? Mandrew Church says, I experienced the dying memories of a person who was murdered in my childhood bedroom. That's intense, bro. I totally believe you. I believe you, bro. Because, like, that makes some real sense. Like, you would get a digital download of that shit. You got digitally downloaded. They need someone to fucking know so they can fucking move on. I think that's some real shit. Let my curiosity get the better of me and communicated back. That was the worst month after that. Yeah, man. Oof, that's really scary. Yeah, I mean, how did that work out for you? I mean, tell us more. Tell us more. iDavy74 says there's a bunch of trees that were modified by Native Americans on my grandma's property, and some experts have looked at them and just said they're graves, legit graves. We've treated everything respectfully as possible. Do you think respect is enough when it comes to these sorts of things? Yeah, I believe that intention is a big part of it. And I think that the respect is a big part of it. And I think that if you are respectful, you can be okay. Sometimes you can maybe, trigger some shit or something that's like whatever. But as long as you're not being a dickhead, I mean, it's kind of like that fucking movie Poltergeist where it's like, you moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. You know, it's like, you can't do that sort of shit. Like, that's going to fucking piss people off, like, really bad. So you got to be careful with that sort of stuff. You do have to be respectful. That's some real shit. Let's see here. Cult leader says, are you interested by the incorruptible saints / Catholic relics? What do you mean by that? Like, I am interested in Catholicism in general. That's one of the reasons why I want to do Exorcist Club, is because I just want a reason to like dive into Catholicism. As a Protestant, I think Catholicism is so mystical, you know, compared to what I had to deal with growing up. I thought it was like way cooler. But yeah, I mean, Catholic relics are really interesting. I mean, they're really pretty. I mean, if you're just talking about like the ones that I've seen, like the reliquary things where it's like, oh, this is the pinky of St. Peter, you know, and it's a little glass jar. Like, that shit is fascinating. That's really interesting. Glamazon Glow says, I live with a ghost and we finally come to an understanding after 7 years. That's the fucking deal. If you're living with a ghost and they can't move on, you got to find a way to live with this person. Okay, you have to find a way to live with this dude or chick, and you have to come to an understanding. And I have watched shows where people have said that they finally, like, instead of being scared, they just realized that this was like an entity and it was still here and they didn't know, you know, what the deal was. And so it was chill, and they just kind of like came to an understanding. And so now when they have experiences, they understand. They're like, oh, hey, what's up? And they're cool towards it, versus like being dicks and then their relationship got fine and like they can just live with a spirit. You know, there is a part where you don't have to exorcise them, where you can just like keep them and just hang out with them and then like let them do their thing and just have an understanding, you know? Because I mean, who knows with this quantum entanglement shit? I mean, you could be dealing with someone's spirit who's like going around like, I don't know, like we don't know how any of this stuff works. We like to act like we know how stuff works, but like we really don't. Like, let's be real about it. Like, we don't know what the fuck. We don't know what the fuck. So it's like, I don't know, you could be dealing with some weird quantum entanglement. You don't know. So Manager Church says, what you said about the Christ Force thing is true. If you can direct that with clarity of intent, assertion of and authority, you can make bad things go away. It just took a while to reach that point. And yes, I'm glad that the Christ Force worked for you. Yes, that's really great. Yeah, the hype is real for Exorcist Club. Do ghosts pay rent? No, they don't. They really don't. Can I please call in? We don't have that right now, but maybe one day we'll have a call-in feature. That would be actually really funny. Yeah, we should. I know we need to get a call-in feature where we can have people physically call the phone. We really do. And then we can like, dude, we've got to do that actually. Yeah, let's get that go. Let's call Time Warner. Let's get a landline. Let's get a landline. It's you guys. We're gonna get this landline going. We're gonna be taking your calls from a fucking phone. How novel is this, by the way? This is like the most, and matches my hair too. It's like really cute. Yes. Okay. I want to read this person's story. Ollie Sunshine says, my aunt's abusive husband hung himself in her basement. I looked into the basement. I felt a dark presence, and my grandma had to pray over me to chase the spirit away. I can still feel the darkness when I think about him. I can never say his name, or I feel his dark, chaotic energy. If I think about him, I'll have to break down and start crying. Thoughts and advice. Okay. So you're in a fear state with this person. This person has turned into a little bit of a very negative energy in your life. But the thing you have to realize is that this person was a human being. They are not like evil. There is like evil as a concept. And the deal is you have to find some sort of like humanity in them and figure out something about them, like to where you can forgive them. Because right now it's like you say that they're an abusive husband. So you're like, oh, this person is a monster. They're a terrible person. You have to find a humanity with them because you've tied a really negative thing to this person. And so I feel like if maybe you do some digging, because it's like, why was this person abusive? Well, they were probably abused. You know, I mean, that's the thing. You know, it's like that's something that nobody ever really wants to talk about, is like people who, you know, become abusers are people who were abused themselves at one point. And if you can find compassion for them, then you can kind of dissipate these negative energies, because whenever you start thinking of them or you think about their name, like you start channeling all this like fear that you have. And so, you know, you're kind of creating this. So try to like find some humanity in this person and realize, like, find some sympathy for them, you know, find some compassion for them. And then I think that this might be less of a problem for you. I know, don't let any trolls get the number. Of course trolls are going to get the number. Of course trolls are going to call in. You know, yeah, we'll screen them. Josh says we'll screen them. So, you've seen other streamers take live Skype calls. It'd be different. Yeah.
We need it on a quarter phone.
Yeah, no, we need it on. Yeah, we need it on one of these. Like, we've got it. This is not Skype. We're doing it on one of these motherfuckers. That's the deal. Ari Sunshine, like Promethea did with the demons in the clip-off. Yes, exactly. Oh my God, you're so like, you're ahead of the game. Yes, there in Promethea, there is a moment where Promethea is going through the Kabbalistic spheres, and then she ends up in the negative version, like the negaverse of the fucking Kabbalah, and it's like the clip-off. And there's a demon, Asmodeus, and she is confronted by this demon. And then she figures out that she is feeding this demon with her fear and with her hate. And when she approaches this demon with love and with respect and with compassion, the demon turns from being an evil giant spider to being a relatively like cool not human being, but a cool demon that you can communicate with, a person, a cool person that you can communicate with. So yeah, totally. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like we feed energies with our energy. I mean, if you read The Shining, which is a very, very famous ghost story, you know, I think there's real shit in there. I think Stephen King's onto some real shit. You have a very, very psychic boy who has a lot of psychic energy, and he is placed in this very, very haunted place where a lot of terrible things have happened. A lot of terrible energies have soaked into the walls of this place. And this kid is essentially like a battery for them. I mean, like, they just like this energy like helps them kind of come to life just by him being there. And so they all start kind of like manifesting and amplifying because of all of this. And I don't know where I was going with this though. I was like, oh fuck, where was I going with this? But I will say that at the very end, okay, so it's like his father, this boy's father, is like, the ending of the Shining book and the ending of the Shining movie are very different. And in the book, it's way scarier in my opinion. And this kid's dad, Danny's father, it's a mallet. It's a roque mallet, which they didn't do in the movie. They have a fucking axe, and it's not nearly as scary because you can get hit with a mallet and still live. You know, like the mallet's really fucking scary. And he's chasing his kid down the sun, Danny, with this fucking mallet. And he's like scaring the shit out of him, and he's all fucked up. And then Danny comes to realize that, like, this isn't my father anymore. Like, my father's been possessed. Like, this isn't my father, you know? And he's like, false face, and just starts yelling at this presence saying, like, you're not my father, like, false face. And then, yeah, and like that, like, fucked with it, you know, and like messed it up a little bit, and like gave him some time to kind of get away. He started like smashing his own face off, and with the mallet, it was like so fucked up, but it was like real. Like, I feel like I don't know, I feel like if you read like Stephen King shit, like, he does have practical like things about all this stuff. Like, he really is channeling some shit. But I will say that if you do start opening yourself up to all these things, then like you will kind of have more of these things come into your life. Like, you'll become more sensitive to them, and you do have to be careful if you're trying to open yourself up to this sort of stuff. Ancient Official says, because they open their third eye so that you can interact with less physical things. It's not bad, but you got to be careful if you use psychedelics for occult reasons. Yeah, you do. You do have to be careful. You have to, like, if you're going to dabble in these things and you're going to deal with these type of energies and you're going to try to communicate with these energies and figure them out, you do need to start by like putting a circle around yourself. I mean, you need to bless yourself. You need to get yourself there. You can use their rituals that you can use. I personally am more of a natural witch, I guess. I just kind of do stuff according to like how I'm feeling at the time versus like having to like have a set of rules. But those things can be, I saw someone asking about the banishing lesser fuck, what is it? The lesser something banishing ritual, which I've read it, and I figured, you know, I've seen what you have to do, but I've never performed it myself. Like, I've read like about rituals and like what the whole deal is, but I've never performed a whole ritual and like learned all of it, which would be interesting to do. And I'm sure it would. I believe in it. I'm not saying I'm not listening to it because like I don't want to do it. It's like, but I'm also just like, I don't know. It just hasn't felt right for me. Like, that doesn't feel like how I deal with things. Yeah. Let's see here. Have you ever felt something push you that wasn't there? Ask Raging Punk. I haven't been touched. I've never felt like a physical like touch from anything. Like, I believe I've heard things, you know, but like I haven't had anything like that. Why? Have you ever been like pushed or touched? Like, do you ever feel that sort of stuff? Tiger Turban says, I was touched a couple of weeks ago at work. What happened, Tiger Turban? Would you please expand upon that? And while you're typing, I'm going to talk to some other people. Frank ZV says, so you'd consider yourself an intuitive practitioner? Yes, I'm an intuitive practitioner. I don't do well with rules, and I respect all of the people who have come before me in the occult, and like those people who have like created these rituals and these like brotherhoods, and I think that they're very powerful, and I think that there's something absolutely to them, and I totally believe in what the fuck they're doing. But I'm a chaos being. I don't like work within rules and regulations. That's not something that I'm ever attracted to. So it's something that I kind of stay away from. And it's something where I feel like if you are gonna deal with these sorts of things and like try those sorts of things, you need to have a whole group behind you. And like I kind of practice on my own. So yeah, I'm definitely more of an intuitive. I just do stuff based on how I'm feeling at the time, and like that seems to like get me by. Should Egypt let the people drink the red dark liquid from the black sarcophagus? Says cult leader. Yes, absolutely. Well, especially with that fucking cheese they found, that ancient cheese. They need to have like. Tyson's like, I told Tyson about this. They found a dark sarcophagus. They opened up the sarcophagus, and everyone's like, the internet was like, no, don't open the sarcophagus. And then they opened the sarcophagus, and then there was like some bodies inside with all this red liquid, all this like red goo. And then there was like a petition for people to drink the red goo from the sarcophagus, of people being like assholes, like trying to joke about everyone wanting to drink about this fucking red goo. And then like not a week, like a week or two later, like they uncover some other tomb, and inside the tomb there's some fucking like ancient cheese that's been in there for like 12,000 years or some shit. And they're like, oh, finally a cheese to go with the red liquid. I thought that was really funny. Tiger Turban says, at first I thought I was being attacked by a bird pushing on my backside. It happened 2 times outside my bus. I'm a driver. I thought it was a bird. Then I heard a guy quit on the night shift because he was actually pushed off his freeton and saw a shadowy figure. Okay. So Tiger Turban, do you think, okay, so it's not, do you think it's that specific bus, or is it the specific place you were? Like where you felt this was like the guy who quit on his night shift because he was pushed off his thing. Was that at the same place that you were feeling pushed, or was that the same bus? Were you guys driving the same thing or what? Yeah. C. Torres says, I'm going to an occult meetup. That's really cool. That's really fun. I hope you have fun and meet some cool people. I mean, there's so many different ways to practice the occult. I mean, it's like there's no like right or wrong way. It's just, you know, no matter what, it's like be safe. It's just kind of like sex, you know. It's like, okay, try some stuff, see what happens, but just try to be safe, you know. Like just wrap it up, guys. Yeah. Heavy Blueberry says, I woke up one morning with a little girl sitting on me and she disappeared immediately. Fucking scary. Fucking scary. Especially like when you're waking up and you're going to bed. Like that's the time where you like come into weird shit. Like that's when stuff happens, is when you're in that astral plane. Yeah. Half of those greater creator vids are occultists. By the way, guess what? A lot of the fucking great thinkers of our times, you know, of our, in our history have all been associated with the occult. Nobody fucking talks about it. Nobody fucking talks about it, and it kills me. It's like, really, like, all of these motherfuckers were initiates in these fucking brotherhoods and these like secret societies and shit like that, and like nobody fucking talks about it. Some of the best artists, writers, mathematicians, scientists, physicists, all of these motherfuckers, everyone who's at the top is like fucking associated with the occult pretty much. And it's really fascinating. You know, yeah. A lot of great thinkers are also drug users. Well, anyone who's like got intelligence is probably going to somewhat dabble in drugs to some degree. That's just what's going to happen. So, huh?
Do an episode on all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, somebody, Andrew Church is saying, Alan Moore said lots of interesting things about language and storytelling being magic that reshapes our internal simulacra of reality and how that reality interfaces with you. Yeah. Well, I think that Alan Moore, you know, or Grant Morrison said it very simply, that something that really made sense to me, which is like reality is plastic. It's plastic. It's like the more that it warps you and you warp it at the same time. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, if you can mold plastic, and it's very moldable, and that's a very similar sentiment. Am I a Scorpio? No, I'm an Aquarius. I'm an alien weirdo Aquarius. So that's the thing.